Hello everyone and welcome to another video tutorial. Today we're going to go back to some perspective exercises. I'm going to keep it real simple today. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it up slightly. Normally we've been drawing cubes and stuff. Today, if you're a circle person, this is the tutorial for you. So, what we're going to do is we're going to draw spheres, but we're going to do it in a way that we can learn about perspective at the same time. And basically, when you draw a sphere, you're just drawing a circle. What defines it is the shading, usually, and that's about all we need to talk about right now. So, let's begin. I'm going to draw a big circle, like this. If you want to know how to draw circles, do this. Just go around it a couple times. If you really want to make perfect circles, use a protractor or something like that, or a compass or whatever. But this is a more freehand way, and you'll usually end up with better results because you can manipulate it however you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw one sphere, and to make it a perspective drawing, we're going to draw some lines to the edges of this sphere, the outer part of the diameter here. And then we're going to draw another sphere right inside that, and another one inside that, and another one inside that. So now we have 4 spheres, and we've just created depth doing that. And we can even extend it out this way, and we can draw an even bigger sphere, like this. And you may be wondering, why should we draw spheres like this? What is the point? For one, you can turn these into cylinders real easy. You just strengthen these lines here, and that would be a cylinder. But more importantly, practicing circles is pretty important because circles are pretty much everywhere in nature and real life, and all the things in between. Heads are pretty much circles, but not really. They're more like ovals. But we're getting started by drawing some circles. So just draw as many as you can. Always start with one and then draw lines out from there so you can keep a sense of scale doing this. Like this. Big circles. Like this. So, if you want to make them more 3D, all we have to do is add some shading. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend the light source is coming from this direction over here. And we'll start with this one down here. And I'm going to keep it real simple to start with because it can get really confusing with spheres. You basically just want to draw a curve somewhere in between if this is the light source. You can do a little circle like this to indicate the highlight. But for the rest of it, we're just going to do a really quick sort of hatching with it. We don't want to be perfect about our shading, but we want to get started, and we don't want to be intimidated by it. So we can do that for the rest of them. Some of them you won't even see the shading. Circle, curve. Like so. And to add more context to that, we can just add some shadows in a little bit here. But we'll do it for the rest here. So we'll add the highlight. And don't worry about it being perfect, like always. Just indicate. We just want to indicate for ourselves even where shadows and lights are. Because then that helps our brain kind of figure out where things need to go. Sorry if I'm less talkative today. I did want to keep making content for y'all, so I'm going to try my best to do it today. I hope this is helpful in some way for all of you. I want to keep providing you guys with some courage to keep moving forward in your art, even though it's kind of hard sometimes. And then, so from here, we might want to add some context. So we're going to add some shadows to it. And this is going to just be, this exercise will soon be over. It's just going to be a real quick one. just roughly draw a curve out wherever you think. Just try, if you can't do it from imagination, look up a reference of things, but try your best to think about where you think it should be. And then you can compare that against what reality says it should be. And that can be a way for you to learn, but if you really want to be pedantic, you start with watching reality first. But sometimes it's good to let your imagination figure out where it's going so you don't become dependent on references if that's what you don't want to do. And if we want to indicate that this is slightly different, we can just add another set of cross-hatching like this. And then we're going to create more shadows. And maybe for these ones, since they're floating in the air, they don't really have cast shadows, but maybe you can imagine a wall here somewhere, so then the shadows come like this. And like that. We're not going to worry about this one because the shadows would kind of overlap, and then that's more complicated than we need it to be right now. But for now, give that a try. Have fun with it. It may seem a bit boring or a bit stale, but it's a good way to get yourself into the idea of both shadows, spheres, and adding shading without it being too intimidating, because there's a lot of tutorials out there on spheres, and when I started I really hated looking at them because they weren't very descriptive and they weren't very step-by-step. They just said you need to know about this shadow and then the slight light and then this shadow which is slightly less shadow than this. I'm just gonna remove that doubt for you. Just start with this and oversimplify. It's cartooning almost, and simplifying first helps our brains ease into more difficult things like cast shadows and reflections and light reflections and all that sort of stuff, which can get very complicated and intimidating. I want to break it down for you to make it as easy as possible to just draw, and then when you find out that you want to make it a little more accurate, then you can add on top of this rather than having to start with learning everything all at once and then just giving up because you don't feel like practicing. So this is a good way to practice if you're feeling a bit like too intimidated or you're just feeling too lazy to be overly detailed. Always start a little bit simpler, and that's the best thing I can suggest for this. So thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm always here ready to answer your questions. I'll see you next time, and have a wonderful day.